Anaesthesia. Documenting an epidural in theatre. The general rule is that if a patient has any kind of lines inserted or infusion started which needs to continue from when they leave theatres, not only does it have to be documented within anesthesia solution, but it should also be documented within PowerChart. The reason being, there are certain elements that will feed into PowerChart, such as fluid balance, the medications that were given, but procedures and actions don't transfer across the exact same manner. So to insert an epidural, we'll document it within anesthesia first, and then we'll go over to PowerChart for the second part. The way you would document an epidural in SA anesthesia is the same way as you document a spinal anesthetic. There is a separate video that demonstrates this. The next step is to document the medications that's given through the epidural. If you're giving stat medication through the epidural catheter, this should be documented on SA anesthesia. If, however, you're setting up an infusion to continue for when the patient leaves theatre, the ideal place to document this would be within PowerChart. The reason being, any medications you document through SA anesthesia, when they leave theatre, it'll terminate and you'll have to re-prescribe it. Therefore, we'll start by documenting the epidural bag. To do this, click on the patient record. We're now in the patient's record on PowerChart. In order to prescribe the epidural bag, you'll need to place an order. This can be done in one of two ways. One is through menu and request and care plans, and the second is through the M page. At the very bottom, you can go to add a new order entry. We will place this order through the M page. So click on new order entry and we'll search for levobupivacaine bag. These are the options we see. These are all plain epidural infusions. None of these have the fentanyl combined bags, which is what we typically use. And that's because it's only showing you the standard formula drugs demonstrated by the green circle. To search beyond this, you'll need to click on search for additional items. And this will present to you more options. The first two are the typical epidural bags that we use. The 250ml bag, which is used on labelboard, and the 500ml bag, which is used for the rest of the hospital. Let's click on the 500ml bag. It's now been sent to my basket, which I'll click on. And let's go to modify the details. The blue X indicates that there are fields that need to be filled in, so let's click on that. And now we can indicate what rate we want to prescribe. So I want to prescribe 10 ml an hour. There's no other mandatory fields. I'm happy with the rest. I'll click on sign. Now the prescription has been completed. The epidural infusion will now appear in the patient's drug chart. To access the drug chart, I'll click on menu, click on drug chart. Give it a refresh. And there we have the bag that we just prescribed. In order to document the start of the infusion, double click on the blue box. This will bring up the pop-up to prescribe the infusion. A quick overview at the top here, you've got different options of what you can document against. You have the begin bag, site change, and so on. We need to start the bag first. Choose a site, epidural. The volume is 500 and the rate which has been pulled through from our prescription. You can change these as you need to. You can also document a witness as well. Once you're happy, click on apply. And then let's sign the record. We'll refresh. To see this in more detail, to click on the dark blue bar again. And as you can see, it has captured the date and the time when the epidural was started and at what rate. Now you have the options of either changing the rates, giving a bolus, or getting rid of any waste. Let's document a bolus. From the left here, click on bolus. Now the options change depending on what you've just clicked. So I'm going to give a 10 ml bolus. The date and time and everything's all populated. I'm happy with everything else. Click on apply. As you can see, it's time stamped when I've clicked apply for a bolus of 10 mils. To accept this, I'll click on sign. Refresh. And these details are all captured here, but a better way to view this would be to click on the blue box again, and you'll see this in a nice grid fashion. If you would like to change the rate, for example, you click on rate change and then insert your new rate. Click on apply. It's giving you a warning because I prescribed it for 10 mils an hour. You can override this. As you can see, with a new timestamp, it's telling me what the current rate will be. If I'm happy with this, click on sign. And now if we go back, you'll see all the changes that you've documented are captured in a table format, and it's clearly timestamped so you can see what has happened to the epidural infusion. The next step is to document the epidural in the iView band. The reason for this is so that any observations in terms of maintenance, troubleshooting of the epidural site is typically documented by nursing staff on the iView band. The same applies for when anaesthetist and pain team review the patients on the ward. Therefore, by starting the documentation for the insertion there, any follow-up documentation can be documented against that entry. So we'll look at that next. To do this, click on Menu and choose Assessments and Fluid Balance. Under Adults, Lines, Tubes and Drains, you'll see Epidural. The epidural line, there is a checkered box, so this is a repeatable group. If you click on that, it allows you to then document the epidural that you inserted. This will create additional fields that you can document against. Once you have documented all the details, sign to finalize your record, and your insertion details has now been recorded. There are more sections below here. For example, if you are troubleshooting or if you are assessing the patient, your assessments of the epidurals and so on. So these are more for when the patient's seen on the ward. You can now return to SA Anaesthesia and continue your anaesthetic.